In 1965, Chevy built a 327 small block so powerful, it embarrassed Corvettes, humiliated big blocks, and disrupted GM's entire performance hierarchy. So why did GM pretend it never existed? Because this one engine, quietly slipped into Novas and Chevelles, wasn't just fast. It was dangerous. Dangerous to Corvette profits, dangerous to GM's corporate ego, and dangerous to the carefully controlled illusion that performance had to come with a big price tag. This is the story of the L-79, the street assassin Chevy tried to erase. It wasn't just any engine. The L-79 was leaving Corvettes behind at red lights and causing panic in GM's executive suites. Instead of celebrating it, GM practically swept it under the rug. No ads, no badges, no spotlight, just raw performance wrapped in a plain package. So what made this engine such a threat, and why did it vanish before most people even knew it existed? Let's dive into the rise and quiet burial of one of the greatest factory sleepers GM ever built. The sleeper that nobody saw coming. In 1965, Chevy quietly slipped a monster into their lineup that most people walked right past at the dealership. The L-79 327 small block sat there on the options list like any other engine choice, buried between the base 283 and the big block alternatives. No flashy badges announced its presence, no racing stripes hinted at its potential. Just a simple checkbox that said L-79 327, with a modest price bump that most buyers probably skipped right over. This wasn't your typical small block though. The L-79 packed an aggressive high-lift cam and an aluminum intake for better breathing and lighter weight. A Rochester 4-barrel carburetor sat on top, ready to feed this engine the air and fuel it craved. These weren't just random upgrades thrown together either. Every component worked in harmony to create something special. The camshaft profile was the real secret weapon here. While most 327s used conservative cam timing designed for smooth idle and good fuel economy, the L-79 featured a more aggressive grind with increased lift and duration. This allowed the engine to breathe deeply at higher RPMs where the real power lived. A guy in a brand new 396 Chevelle SS pulls up to a red light, all confident with his big block rumble and SS badges gleaming. Next to him sits what looks like a basic Nova. No stripes, no badges, just plain steel and chrome. The light turns green and that innocent-looking Nova launches like it was shot from a cannon, leaving the big block in its dust. The Chevelle driver sits there wondering what the hell just happened. The lightweight A-body cars like the Nova made this combination absolutely deadly on the street. A typical Nova weighed around 3,100 pounds, compared to nearly 3,500 for a Chevelle SS. When you drop 350 real horsepower into that lighter platform, the power-to-weight ratio becomes something beautiful. Magazine tests from the era consistently showed L-79 cars running 14.2 to 14.5 second quarter-mile times, when most muscle cars were struggling to break into the low 14 seconds. Here's where things get interesting though. While most engines from this era were lucky to make their advertised horsepower ratings, the L-79 actually delivered on its 350 horse promise. Independent dyno tests consistently showed these engines making their rated power or more. Compare that to the typical 327 that made maybe 250 honest horsepower, and you start to understand why L-79 cars were embarrassing much more expensive machinery. The engine configuration was so effective because Chevrolet had essentially taken the lessons learned from Corvette development and applied them to a mass-production small block. The combination of that aggressive cam, improved breathing, and proper carburation created an engine that loved to rev and made power across a broad RPM range. It wasn't just peak horsepower either. The L-79 made strong torque from 3,000 RPM all the way to 6,000. In short, Chevrolet grafted Corvette tech into everyday cars, creating a sleeper that delivered genuine 350 horsepower where few others could match it. But this performance advantage was about to create some serious problems for GM's carefully planned automotive hierarchy when David started beating Goliath. Car and driver's test results told the whole story. Their L-79 Nova ran a 14.2 second quarter mile, while the 396 Chevelle SS managed only 14.8 seconds. Here was concrete proof that GM's performance hierarchy had been turned completely upside down. The smaller, cheaper car was embarrassing the big block flagship model that was supposed to be the king of the street. The L-79 was making GM's own performance pecking order look ridiculous. The Chevelle SS396 came positioned as Chevrolet's muscle car hero, complete with special trim, racing stripes, and a premium price tag. But when the numbers came in from magazine tests, that plain Nova with the L-79 option was consistently faster than the car that cost significantly more money. Hot Rod magazine got similar results in their testing, with L-79 Novas consistently outrunning heavier muscle cars. Motor Trend called the L-79 Nova the sleeper of the year after it embarrassed several big block competitors in their comparison tests. These weren't isolated incidents either. The pattern was showing up everywhere automotive journalists put these cars head-to-head. The physics behind this performance advantage were straightforward. With roughly 350 horsepower in a car, hundreds of pounds lighter than a Chevelle SS, the L-79 Nova consistently outpaced its pricier sibling. The power-to-weight ratio math was simple and brutal. The Nova had the advantage every time the cars lined up side by side. Local drag strips across the country started seeing the same pattern. L-79 Novas and Chevelles were showing up and dominating Friday night eliminations. These cars didn't look like much in the parking lot, but they were consistently running numbers that beat much more expensive machinery. Street racers caught on fast too. Why spend extra money on a big block when the small block was quicker? The performance was threatening GM's carefully constructed brand positioning in ways that went beyond just sales numbers. Chevrolet had spent years building the image that bigger engines and more expensive cars meant better performance. The L-79 was proving that engineering and efficiency could beat raw displacement and marketing flash. GM's product planners were dealing with something they'd never anticipated. A situation where their budget performance option was actually outperforming their premium muscle cars. The L-79 wasn't just fast for a small block. It was making GM's premium performance cars look overpriced and underpowered compared to what you could get in a basic Nova. The corporate structure simply couldn't handle this kind of internal competition, where the cheap cars were showing up the expensive ones on a regular basis. And that performance gap had GM's marketing team scrambling for answers. But the real problem wasn't just embarrassing sales numbers or confused customers. The L-79's success was about to clash with something much bigger: GM's own corporate politics and the carefully guarded image of their most profitable performance car. The corporate cover-up nobody talks about. The real story lies in what Chevrolet didn't do with their hottest engine. After the '63 AMA ban, GM forbid factory racing support, so unlike Ford and Chrysler, Chevy went radio silent on the L-79. While Ford was bragging about their 427 Fairlanes and Chrysler was shouting about their 426 Hemis, Chevrolet treated the L-79 like a classified military project. You wouldn't find it featured in glossy advertisements or promotional materials. It just sat there on the options list, waiting for someone smart enough to check the right box. GM's internal policies had created a corporate culture where high-performance engines were politically dangerous territory. After the ban, GM executives became extremely nervous about anything that could be perceived as promoting street racing or aggressive driving. The corporate memo was clear: no official racing participation, no advertising that emphasized speed, and definitely no engines that drew unwanted attention from safety regulators or insurance companies. Evidence suggests Chevy deliberately underpromoted the L-79 to protect the Corvette's image as GM's undisputed performance flagship. The Corvette was supposed to be the halo car, the ultimate expression of Chevrolet performance that justified its premium price tag. The internal politics were pretty straightforward when you looked at the profit margins. Corvette sales generated much higher profits per unit than Nova or Chevelle sales. A single Corvette sale was worth 3 or 4 economy car sales to the bottom line, when a basic Nova with an L-79 could outrun a Corvette for thousands of dollars less. Protecting those margins meant making sure nothing threatened the Corvette's position as the performance king, even if that meant hiding a superior engine option in cheaper cars. The lack of marketing materials, special badges, or promotional campaigns was striking when you compared the L-79 to other performance engines of the era. Ford's 289 High Performance got special callouts and distinctive valve covers. Chrysler's 340 Small Block received aggressive marketing and unique identification. The L-79 got nothing. No special trim, no performance badges, no magazine advertisements highlighting its capabilities. This wasn't accidental neglect but deliberate suppression of a product that threatened GM's carefully constructed corporate strategy. The L-79 represented everything GM couldn't officially support: a relatively inexpensive engine that delivered premium performance in cars that were supposed to be economical transportation. It violated the fundamental rule that performance should cost more money. General Motors had created a monster that was too good for its own corporate structure. The L-79 was a factory hot rod that had to be hidden because admitting its capabilities would have disrupted their entire product lineup and pricing strategy. Rising insurance premiums on high-performance options gave GM a convenient rationale to quietly drop the L-79 by 68. The corporate decision to eliminate their problem child was already in motion, but the reasons had nothing to do with the engine's performance capabilities. The L-79 died in 1968, not because it wasn't good enough, but because it was too good for GM's corporate comfort. They had created the perfect sleeper that threatened their entire product hierarchy and profit structure. From boardroom embarrassment to collector goldmine, the L-79 story shows how engineering over marketing can shake an empire. The ultimate irony? Today, these forgotten sleepers are among the most valuable muscle cars because collectors finally understand what GM tried to hide. L-79 Novas and Chevelles now sell for serious money at auctions, with their plain appearance making them even more desirable to enthusiasts who appreciate true performance over flashy badges. If you'd race an L-79 Nova today or have a hidden gem story, drop a comment and hit like. Don't forget to subscribe for more underdog car legends. What other factory sleepers deserve a second look?